Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be my October reading wrap up. I did not read as many books as I normally do. It was definitely a slower month, but still had a pretty good reading month. I did DNF a book, but I also did a reread that I love. So let's jump on into it. So I'm not going in any particular order. I'm going to try to kind of go in the order that I read them, but they may be a little all over the place. So the first book that I read was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is the first book in the Shepherd King duology. I rated this book 4.5 stars. I really loved it. I loved the beginning of this duology so much. In this book, you are following our main character, Elspeth, and she is essentially infected with a curse, and you're kind of going along with her on her journey to kind of find the cure. And the magic system in this series is actually really cool because you are essentially trying to get the all 12 cards because you need all 12 of these like magical cards in order to cure the, lift the mist and cure the infection. And so they're kind of going on the hunt for this last card that they need, and she meets some friends along the way. She has a love interest who I adore in this book, and you just kind of go on their journey. One of my favorite things about this book was definitely the magic system because it was super unique. I've never read anything where like a deck of cards or anything like that is like used. And then I also really loved that our main character Elspeth has what's called the nightmare, and it's like this fun in quotations because nothing really fun about them, but this funny, sarcastic little side character that reminds me a lot of Silas, if you have read Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. And genuinely, Elspeth and Raven give me the same kind of vibes that Nathaniel and Elizabeth give me. So if you liked Sorcery of Thorns, I would definitely recommend picking up One Dark Window because their kind of dynamic of the three of them definitely gave me the same vibe. And then there's also these other side characters that I really enjoyed throughout the book. And overall, I definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, 4.5 stars. I wasn't a huge fan of the way that the book ended, honestly. I don't know what I was expecting, but I feel like it wasn't what I got. And I think that was genuinely the only reason that I didn't rate this book a 5-star, because everything else, like, I ate up. I read this book very quickly. I just absolutely adored it. But the last, like I said, the last maybe 50 pages, I was just kind of like, wasn't the biggest fan of just how that book ended. So next up, we have A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent, which is by Marie Brennan. So in this book, you are following our main character, who is Miss Lady Trent. And essentially, I didn't know this before I went into it, but what these books are is it is the main character, I think her name is Isabella, who she's known by as a Lady Trent, but Isabella is an old woman, I think like in her 70s or 80s, and these books are her kind of chronicling her story and her journey. So The Natural History of Dragons is like her first kind of growing up, kind of dipping her toe and how she got into this whole world of kind of being like a naturalist and how she got to where she is in like kind of the first chunk of her life. I think until she was maybe in her like 20s or 30s. And you meet some really interesting characters in this book. It's definitely an interesting book. I was a little bit bored throughout most of it. There just wasn't a lot that was like hooking me. Like a lot of this, there just wasn't like a lot of plot necessarily. Like it's a memoir essentially. So you're just kind of following her story, her path, her journey, all the boring parts. There's a couple of like exciting parts. There's a sad part at the end that definitely gets you. But overall, I wasn't the biggest fan, so I did only rate it a 3. Like I said, it wasn't bad. I really did enjoy the audiobook because it is a memoir. I tend to listen to memoirs via audio because I like hearing it in the the author's, or the author's voice. And the narrator of this book definitely sounds like how I would picture Isabella sounding. So I definitely recommend the audiobooks. I may continue the series, honestly. I don't know. It just didn't grip me. I just wasn't the biggest fan of the plot. So next up, I have Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. So this is the book that I DNF'd this month. I DNF'd it at 53%. It is a Kindle Unlimited book. It wasn't bad. So I definitely was enjoying it. It just felt like very repetitive. You're essentially following two characters. They're both, it's called a dark romantic comedy. So both these characters are serial killers, and you're kind of following them. They meet up once, I think once a year, because they're kind of doing this game together. And so they meet once a year to kind of see who can figure out who the target is that they're supposed to be trying to kill, and who can kind of get to them first. And the thing that the brother of the main character, Rowan, that he's kind of sets up, and he doesn't tell either of them anything about it except like a location, and they both meet there. And I did like their dynamic. They definitely were funny. I just found it very repetitive. Every time they meet up, they'd have these, and then they'd have these like kind of weird text conversations. It just didn't feel like we got like a deep connection between the two characters. And so it was very just surface level. Like you didn't get a lot of time with them together. And when you did, it was like there were like a 6 months to a year kind of in between. And I just wasn't a huge fan of that. Like I like to kind of dive in, and I like to have my characters kind of like be together. Or be like constantly communicating, like not necessarily over like a short period of time, like, but I feel like having the characters see each other once a year, once every 6 months, and then we would like get random like text conversations between the characters, or we'd have the main character, the girl, I don't even remember her name, talking about something that happened. It's like, so they were kind of telling us instead of showing us with some things, and I just wasn't like the biggest fan. Don't get me wrong, it was definitely funny. It was a very interesting plot, and I might pick it up. It was kind of a soft DNF where I just like wasn't in the mood for it. So I definitely may pick it back up. But yeah, like I said, DNF'd at 53%. So next up, I read Zodiac Academy, Fated Thrones, which is the 6th book in the Zodiac Academy series. And obviously I'm not going to go too much into it because it is the 6th book, but I did give it 5 stars. I love Zodiac Academy so much. If you don't know what Zodiac Academy as a whole is about, you are following your two main characters, who are Darcy and Tori, and they are these twin sisters that were kind of found in the mortal realm by Orion, who ends up being a teacher at this like school in a completely different realm. And so then they go to this realm and they find out something very interesting. They find out that they are meant to be they're like the long lost heirs to the throne that have been lost for like 18 years. And so it's about these two girls who have no idea what they're doing. They had no idea that they have magical powers, and you kind of find out what their magical abilities are. And a lot of it is based off like the elements like water, fire, air, and earth. So like a lot of their magical abilities kind of center around that. And like you find out in the first book, what abilities they get. And then there's also other just really cool powers that all these characters in the book get. So you're following Tori and Darcy as they're kind of navigating, finding out that they are the long lost heirs to the throne, because there are these 4 males who are called the celestial heirs. So the celestial heirs are the heirs that are the kids of the current council, and they took over when Tori and Darcy's parents were murdered. They took over as the 4 kind of rulers, and they kind of split everything evenly. And so all of their kids are trained the same, and no one can have like a leg up on the other. Like they're all very equal. So that way all of the 4 families stay in that kind of equal playing field. So you have those 4 characters with Darius, Seth, Caleb, and Max, and they are the 4 celestial heirs. So you have those 4 plus Tori and Darcy. So you get, this series is a bully romance. I'm just warning you, if you do not like bully romances, do not read this book. But let me tell you what, this series is amazing. The character growth in those 4 characters alone is honestly kind of astounding. Between the first book and where I am at now, I have loved every single book that I have read. There's drama, there's romance for sure. There's definitely smut. There's fantasy elements. There's a plot that's going on. There's amazing side characters. There's really good found family. The magical school element, I absolutely love it. It is genuinely so good. I got my mom to read it, and she, I'm pretty sure, binged, I think, the entire series that's out right now in like a month. So she loved it. Safe to say. So I gave this a 5 stars. It wasn't my favorite book in the Zodiac Academy series that I've read so far. Book 4, Shadow Princess, will always have a special place in my heart for that ending, but they are all super, super good. And again, I really enjoyed my time, and I cannot wait to get back into that world for sure. So next up, I read The Xhex by Erin Sterling, and I rated this book a 4-star. I really, really enjoyed this. It is just a fun, kind of spooky little rom-com contemporary romance. You are following our main character, Vivian, who is a witch, and she, 9 years ago, her and her boyfriend of like 3 months broke up. His name is Reese, and they broke up because he was like already engaged, and he didn't want to be engaged, but his father was calling him back to where he was from because he needed to like kind of proceed with that engagement, etc. And so obviously she's upset, she's angry, she's drinking with her cousin, and her cousin put like a fake curse on Reese. Fast forward 9 years, Reese ends up having to go back to the town, and all of a sudden, Vivian and her cousin are noticing that, wow, all these really bad things are happening to Reese, and the entire town is kind of going kablooey. So could that curse we put on him be real? And so you're literally just following Reese and Vivian's cousin. I think her name's Gwen. And so you're just kind of following their adventure, and it is hilarious. I love the dynamic between Reese and Vivian. They're so funny. It definitely was a very fun ride, and just a very nice, easy, quick read. I think I read it in like a day. So it was a super good time, and I definitely recommend picking this up. My aunt actually, I think, listened to it on audio, and she really enjoyed it. So it's just a fun time. The romance is really cute. There's a lot of really cute, fun moments between the two characters, and I just really like the dynamic between the two of them. So I think I'm gonna pick up the next book in the duology. It's a interconnected standalone. So I think the next one follows her cousin Gwen, and I think it's called The Kiss Curse. So I'm definitely gonna be picking up the next one, and like I said, 4 stars. So next up, I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This was a reread because we all know I read this back, I think, around when it first came out. May, I think, was when it first came out. And I ate it up then, and I ate it up now. I even liked it better the second time. In this book, you are following our main character, Violet Sorrengal, and you kind of jump right into the beginning with the plot. So she is the daughter of the general at Basgiath War College, and so her mom is the general of the army. And so Violet has been training her entire life to be a scribe and follow in her father's footsteps, because there are 4 quadrants that you can be in at Basgiath War College, and I think it's healers, scribes, infantry, and riders. So like I said, she's been training her entire life to be a scribe because that's what her father wanted her to do, and that's what Violet liked to do, because Violet has a chronic illness, and so she has like a really hard time with strength training and things like that. So Violet has 2 siblings, Brennan, who has passed away, and Mira, who is a current rider in the rider quadrant, and her brother Brennan was also in the rider quadrant. So I want to say maybe a month or so, or 6 months before, Violet is supposed to kind of go in, take the test to become a scribe at the college, her mom tells her, just kidding, you're going to be a writer. And she's like, what? So then she has to start doing all new training and everything to become a writer. And being a writer is like one of the most difficult things, because the dragons can kill you at any point in time. There's like all these tests you have to do, like with physical endurance. There's all these things called, I think they're called like trainings, where you are trying to take knives from like other people. like people that are trying to be writers, and they can, like, you can get killed, and there's just like a lot going on in the writer quadrant. So you're following Violet having to be in the writer quadrant, and you're following her journey. She makes some friends along the way. There's some love interest, which we love the love interest. It's enemies to lovers, which is my favorite. And there's dragons, and the dragons in this book are so good. I love, love, love the way that the dragons are utilized in this book. I love the powers that they have. I love how they communicate with their riders, and I just love all of the interconnected things that you learn throughout the book with the dragons, the riders, the friends, everything. Like, it is just so, so good. And like I said, this is a reread, and this time I just loved it even more. I think the first time I read it, I gave it like a 4.25 or a 4.5. 100% 5-star. I cannot wait for Iron Flame to come out, and it comes out in like 8 days. Not even. Wow. 6 days, and I am stoked. So again, absolutely love this. I love Violet as a main character. I love following her journey. Again, really enjoy the love interest and kind of seeing where that goes, and the friendships. It's just so, so good. So then after that, I read Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, which is the second book in the Shepherd King duology. So I finished up that duology this month, and I rated that book a 3.5 stars. I was not the biggest fan. So you pick up right where the first book leaves off. But again, I didn't really like the ending of the first book. So when we pick up in the second book, I'm just kind of like already not super into it. I really was kind of just there for like the romance and the characters, like that, and like the plot, but like not how it ended, if you're catching my drift. I was just kind of interested to see where it was going to go. So I had high hopes. I learned that it was multi-POV, which I did enjoy because I liked the two side characters. So what this did is you follow Elspeth, Raven, and a couple of other characters on their journey, and then you follow a side character from the first book and his journey. I did enjoy the side character's story. I liked the arc that he got. I really enjoyed the romance. I genuinely enjoyed it. And I also enjoyed what happened in the second plot with Raven and Elspeth. But I felt like we didn't get enough of either of them because our time was like so split, and it just felt so jarring because it felt like we were like jumping from one thing to the next. And like I said, I get it. At the end, everything all converged together. It wasn't bad. I really did enjoy the book. I really enjoy the characters, and I like how everything kind of wrapped up. But I just felt, I don't know, I just felt off about it, and it just wasn't my favorite thing. Like I said, I did enjoy both storylines. Raven and Elspeth's wasn't my favorite. It was okay. I honestly kind of enjoyed the side character from the first plot, or from the first book. I enjoyed his plot line a lot better than Raven and Elspeth's. And so I honestly would have kind of rather had like a novella in between where it followed, you know, the side character and his journey, and then we pick up, you know, where we kind of left off, and we could have a whole book about Raven and Elspeth, because I felt like their story just kind of like faded to the background when it was like the main plot of the first book. And don't get me wrong, I know that the romance was kind of a subplot and it was more supposed to be fantasy driven, which is fine. I have no problem with that, but it just felt like their characters as a whole took a back seat, and she split the book up, which again isn't a bad thing. It just wasn't my favorite thing. So like I said, I rated that a 3.5 stars. I do overall recommend reading the duology. It was a very fun time, and a 3.5 is not a bad rating. It just isn't like my all-time favorite. But it was definitely still a good time. I really still love the characters, so I definitely do recommend picking it up. Then after that, so kind of, I would say for the last couple weeks. So my other book is, I was rereading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and I was listening to this on audio, but I always love to show off my Nerdy Ink covers because I'm obsessed. So Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it other than you're following Harry. This is the 4th book in a series, and you are following him on his journey to ultimately try to defeat Lord Voldemort. I feel like I don't need to explain this book, so I'm honestly not gonna try because I probably couldn't, and I'd probably just botch it. Just, I love Harry Potter. We all know this. I love Harry Potter so much. Gave it a 5 star. Goblet of Fire, I think, is my favorite out of all of the books. because I just love like the Triwizard Tournament in this, like where it gives the book kind of like a whole another dynamic where you're having characters who are kind of competing with each other, and I just thought that was a lot of fun. And then obviously at the end of the book you have this kind of whole thing that happens, and it's such a good time. I love it. I love the characters, and I think book 4 and movie 4 is kind of where things start to kind of take that shift from like the first 3 books were kind of a fun goofy time, and then things start to change, and like even book 3 is a little bit on the darker side, so like things just kind of get darker and darker with each book you go, but they're still super good. I love the characters like so much. Like these characters feel like my family, like every single one of them. Side characters, main characters, I don't care. I love them all. 5 stars. Next up was The Brothers Hawthorne by Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 4th book in the Inheritance Game series. I mean, it follows the Hawthorne brothers from the first 3 books, and I don't know if it's like technically part of the series or if it's just like supposed to be like a companion novel. I don't really know. But in this book, you are following Jameson and Grayson, which are 2 of the 4 brothers from the first 3 books that follow Avery. And you're kind of following them each on their own little missions. So I don't want to give too much of this away, kind of even the plot lines about what's going on, because it gives away stuff from the first 3 Inheritance Games books. So essentially my rating, I gave it a 3. 3 is not bad, but it wasn't great. It was just a book that I listened to. I like being back in the world. I enjoy the characters, but that was okay. I like being with the characters again, and I did like their each, like I said, Jameson and Grayson, they're each going on kind of like their own plot. And I did like each of the plots, and then they obviously converge at the end, but it just wasn't anything like spectacular. Like, I don't know, there was something about the first 3 books that were just like amazing. Like I binged those 3 books in like 3 days, and this one took me a couple days, and it just wasn't great. I feel like because with those 3 books, like the characters a lot of times were together, they were solving things together, they were all kind of had this common goal. In this one, like everyone's kind of separated. It just wasn't the greatest. Wasn't the worst, wasn't the greatest. Fast chapters, quick pacing, good writing. Definitely overall, like if you like the Inheritance Games, definitely pick this up. Like it's a fun little addition to it, but I just feel like it could have been a novella instead of like a 450 page book. I definitely feel like it could have been like trimmed it down a bit. Jameson's storyline was okay, but like it wasn't great, and I just really did enjoy Grayson's. Like I look forward to Grayson's storyline, whereas Jameson's I just wasn't like all that invested in it. So overall, 3 stars, not bad. Definitely pick it up if you enjoyed the Inheritance Games. The final book that I read this month was A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This was the last book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. And again, because it's the last book, I don't want to go too much into it, but the story as a whole is you are following Evangeline, who is essentially trying to figure her life out. She has this one true love, and the one true love is marrying someone else, and so she goes to Xhex, who is a fate and the Prince of Hearts, and asks him to help her so that this love of hers does not marry someone else. And that's kind of the plot of the first book, is them figuring that out. And then obviously any deal you make with a fate isn't not at all what it's cracked up to be. So obviously things kind of go awry, and then things just happen. And I love the series as a whole. Definitely like a 4 to 4.5 star series for sure. The second book, The Ballad of Never After, was definitely my favorite, because I feel like that's where we got like the most romance between the 2 main characters. But the first book was more focused on Evangeline and her figuring out herself with the person that she was in love with. And then the last book that I just read, didn't really have a lot of the romance between those 2 characters, which was like honestly kind of disappointing. I feel like the way that the second book ended, the third book definitely, it picked up right where that left off, but I just felt I don't know. They just wasn't, it was okay. I rated it a 3.5, but I was just a little bit let down, a little bit disappointed with it. Overall, definitely do recommend the trilogy. It's a lot of fun to read. It's very easy to read. It's a very quick and easy fantasy book to get into because it's like just like a fairy tale. Like the writing is great. The descriptions are great. Our main character, Evangeline, she's such a bubbly personality. And even the other main character, Jax, just they balance each other out really well. And I love her nickname. It is literally the cutest thing ever. Little Fox, like, come on. I'm obsessed. So I definitely love the two characters, but I just felt like we didn't get enough of them, like, in the third book. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed my October reads. I had a pretty good reading month. I did have some letdowns, a DNF, but I also reread some great books, and I also, like I said, found some really good books that I hope you guys will also enjoy. And I finished up a couple of series, so you can't go wrong with that. And with that, I will catch you guys all in my next video.